Iraqi people are resisting the occupation, not the Syrian people. This is the truth. I mean, this is a fact. George Washington did it one day. Was he terrorist when he fought the British occupation of USA? He wasn't. This is what we teach to our children in our manuals. We teach them the values of George Washington and Abraham Lincoln and President Wilson. We are not against USA. We are not against the American people. We love the American people. We are proud of this huge industrial civilization. We share a lot of outcome of this civilization, the technology, and we are not blind. We know what's going on in the world. But we are obliged to be at the defensive. And somehow somebody is asking us, obliging us, obligating us to share with him the results of his fiasco. Why should we be held responsible for the fiasco and the failure of these policies of the American administration in Iraq? Should we be blamed for the occupation of Iraq? We are not the ones who went there. You said Lebanon. Lebanon, as I told you, was a French idea at the beginning to create a Christian state in the heart of the Middle East. It didn't fly because the Lebanese themselves did not digest the idea. Of course, small minorities were collaborating with the French rulers at that time, but the majority of the Lebanese were against. Lebanon in 1944 wanted to join the Arab League. We were talking at the same time about founding the Arab League. It was founded, by the way, in the same year, 1945, with the United Nations. So the Arab League is one of the oldest international institutions in the world. At that time, we in Syria, we gave up, voluntarily speaking, parts of our territory, and we gave them to Lebanon to make Lebanon bigger and to break down this idea of having a pure religious, another pure religious state in the Middle East. And this is how the current Lebanon was created. Not only with what the French built up, but also with regions and areas we gave up, voluntarily speaking, from our own territory. This is why Lebanon has now a mixed population of Christians and Muslims. That gives you an indication that we have no ambition whatsoever towards Lebanon. Lebanon is very fragile sectarian society, very fragile. And people there owe their existence to their sectarian leadership. Everybody turns towards his leader, sectarian leader. They don't turn towards the state, the government. This is a culture. It's a Lebanese, purely Lebanese culture. People have affiliation towards their sectarian leaders. Due to that situation, the civil war started in Lebanon in 1976. Of course, there was the Palestinian presence in Lebanon, Yasser Arafat at that time. The Israelis and the Palestinians were fighting each other in South Lebanon. So the situation was very complicated. But when the civil war erupted in Lebanon and people started to kill each other, Washington, Paris, and London called on Syria to intervene and to save Lebanon. We did it. We did it because we were called to do so by the president of Lebanon at that time. And the Arab League supported our intervention in Lebanon. Actually, we entered Lebanon and we stopped the civil war. And history is there. And Washington thanked us at that time with Paris for having stopped the war. Only Israel has interest in seeing Lebanon turning towards religious strife. Only Israel, because Israel needs to see another stereotype created next to it based on the same approach, purely religious approach. We withdrew from Lebanon, as you know, in the year 2004. And from that moment, we withdrew from Lebanon because we were asked to do so by the Security Council and by the Lebanese. But that happened after the occupation of Iraq. And that was done because we were against the occupation of Iraq. So we had to pay the price of our stand vis-à-vis the occupation of Iraq. This is why we were asked to leave Lebanon. They wanted also to put an end to our regional role. Put an end to our regional role requires definitely and by definition getting the Syrians out of Lebanon, getting the Syrians out of the Palestinian equation, getting the Syrian out of the Jordanian affairs, getting the Syrian out of everything in the Middle East. This is the meaning of putting an end to our regional role. Everything going on in Lebanon right now against Syria is part of this background, is of this picture. They accused us of having assassinated the late Prime Minister Rafiq Hariri. Honestly speaking, this man was our man in Lebanon. He was our man, the Syrian man in Lebanon. Why would we commit political suicide by killing him? Those who killed Rafiq Hariri, they did it because they knew that by killing him, they will get Syria out of Lebanon. And remember what I'm saying, because after a while, the full investigation undertaken by the United Nations would be known to everybody. And it will be proved that Syria had nothing to do with this. Just for your kind information, 2 days ago, a Lebanese newspaper, Al-Akhbar, published the confessions of the murderers of Rafiq Hariri. The murderers are in the Lebanese jail. They have been in the Lebanese jail for months, and nobody speaks about them because nobody has interest in alleviating the burden from on the Syrian shoulders. The murderers are very well known now, and they are in the Lebanese jail. And they confessed. And they said how they killed the man. But this is boycotted by the media because nobody wants that to be known.
So, you had a question.
You talked to us about the great history of the Syrian Empire, and after also the victim of Syria, of the colonialism. You talked about the Ba'ath Party, that means Renaissance. But you don't tell us that the Ba'ath Party significantly restricts freedom of speech in Syria, of press, of assembly and association. I quote you, you told us religion is not an issue for us. Religion lives together in Syria. And you also asked, why should Jews leave Syria to Israel? I will tell you, because in 1944, after Syria